So I'm just gonna talk for 1 second about my beige flag, okay? Because it's pretty weird. And there's so many people out there that will say this exact same thing. They'll say, "Oh, I'm so terrible with names. I'm terrible with names. I'm great with faces, but I'm terrible with names." And my beige flag is I'm not only terrible with names, I'm also terrible with faces. And don't come after me if like I forget who you are or I don't recognize you, because I heard Brad Pitt talking about this and he says it's like actually a disease and that you cannot recognize faces. Let me explain a little bit. So I either can't remember people's faces whatsoever, or I think everybody is the exact same person. So I'll be watching a movie or a TV show with my husband and I'll be like, "Oh hey, that's the same guy from this other movie." And my husband's like, "Laura, no it's not." For example, I think the dude who plays Hopper in Stranger Things is like every dude in every single movie. And let me give you the biggest example of how this actually plays out in my life. So before I got married, before I started dating my husband, I was on all of the dating apps. And I actually went out with this same dude twice and didn't even realize it. Which, to be fair, is really bizarre from his side if he remembered who I was. But I met him on one dating site and we met up, we went out on a date. Can't even remember what we talked about because it was an okay date, I'm sure, but like, because it didn't raise any red flags, but obviously there was no chemistry because we didn't continue communicating after the date. And then it was like a year later on a different dating app, we matched and he messages me like, "Hey, let's go meet up sometime." And I'm like, "Okay, cool, like let's go out on a date." And so we're on the date and I obviously didn't realize it was the same dude. And so we're talking, we're having a conversation on this date and he's like, "Oh," and I was saying something and he's like, "Oh yeah, you told me that last time." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "You told me that last time we went out." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Oh, we went out before." And I was like, "We did?" Like it didn't even make sense to me, which like I said is weird on his part. Like he didn't think it was weird that I was communicating and talking to him like this is the first time we've ever talked before. Little weird, but anyways, that's honestly how it affects my life, is that I'm just terrible with names, but I'm probably even worse with faces, so don't take it personally if we meet and I don't necessarily recognize you, because I will remember the conversation that we had, that's for sure. Let me know your beige flags in the comments. Also, does anybody else have this problem? Like, please let me know. I'm not the only one. Me and Brad Pitt aren't the only ones.